Hi, I'm Veronica with Cafecito, Puro, and today for our guest co-host or star, we have Tarra Samuelson. If you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Tarra. I have been in the specialty coffee industry for, it'll be about 14, 15 years now. Started out as a barista and just kind of worked my way up in regards to management, training, account management, sales, and whatnot. So I do a lot of education with the SCA, and I also own my own consulting company, Curated Coffee Consulting.
Yeah, very, very cool.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. Let's go ahead. We're going to just do some questions to kind of talk about your coffee journey, how that's been for you, what challenges you faced in it, what your favorite parts of it are, what you'd like to see changed, kind of stuff like that. Okay?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Awesome. So the first one is pretty simple. You kind of went into it a little bit, but if we can go a little bit more in depth, what is your origin story when it comes to your coffee journey? Kind of how did that start, and like where did it bring you to where you're at now?
Totally. So I have a really dumb story of how I got started in coffee.
We love it.
And I'll condense it as much as I can, but I essentially had to move home in between my sophomore and junior year of college. And I just needed a job to get me through. And I found this like application online for a coffee shop over in Rancho Cucamonga. So it was like also right at the beginning of smartphones. And so I was like, oh, okay, I know where this address is. Point is, I go to what I thought the place was not it. My smartphone that I have is not working. I'm going along like a major route just to hopefully find where this coffee shop is, right?
And then I'm already late.
I'm already late. Yeah, I'm totally late. And so what happened was I walk in the front door and I'm like, hey, I'm here for the interview. And they were like, oh, you better get in line. And I go up the backside and it's all the way around the building.
Did they have you guys all at the same time slot?
Yes, it was kind of a group interview, right? So either way, I am the second to last person in line, and it gave me time to really think about kind of like what I wanted to say and seeing what was working or not. So I go up to the front of the line, or, finally get there. The woman asked me like, okay, why do you want to work here? And I start, telling why I want to work here, that I'm going to be here for a long time. I can dedicate full, all this other stuff. She just stops me point blank. And she goes, I'm sorry, do you have a nose piercing? And at the time I did. And I'm thinking, this is done. This is over. And I go, yeah, I do. She goes, okay, I have one too that's totally fine.
We're in coffee.
She's like,
has some sort of
I know. Again, this was like 15 years ago. And she's like, if you can remove it, honestly, I really like you. Let's move forward. And it was like 20 seconds into it. And I'm like, totally. Yeah. And so I ended up moving through. Funny. Yeah. And so, little did I know, I get hired just to be a barista over the summer. I'm thinking this is just going to be a summer job. And what I ended up getting was an incredible training with who was one of the highest ranking female baristas in the world at the time. And it really set off the rest of my career for education, training, barista. I mean, just so much. And it was an incredible start to my journey.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
That is really, really cool. Had you worked in food and beverage before, or was this your first kind of intro to that?
First time.
First time. Yep. How did you know you wanted to get into coffee or like be a barista? Like, was there anything that kind of pushed you towards that versus getting, I don't know, like a retail job or anything like that?
Totally. Truthfully, I just needed a summer job. And I had actually already had a job lined up come the fall time. I was going to start AmeriCorps. I was originally intending to go into a children's education path. Okay. And so, like I said, it just kind of started because I just needed a job. Yeah. And many people, they're thinking, oh, coffee shop job, just a little one to, get you through.
Something fun.
Totally. Yeah. I think I had always wanted something a little bit more food and beverage oriented. I have a sibling who's in retail, and I hate folding clothes. So
no.
Yeah. Like I already know, like I don't like folding clothes. I don't like dusting, but I love working with food, and I love working with people and high energy environment. So that was kind of where I just decided to take the dive there.
That is so cool.
Thanks.
Awesome. And then you said that you've kind of gone into a couple of different positions to land you where you are at now. So you started as a barista. Do you want to touch on kind of the many other roles that you've had within the coffee industry?
Sure. So started out as a barista. And I kind of did that very classic, like I was just at the register or the cashier for like a solid 3 months. And I actually did an espresso class and did so bad. I had to be like pulled back in it. And that's okay. I say, you know, I had to do 3 latte art classes before I could do it, but gave me time to really learn patience. And I think gain a little bit more of that emotional intelligence when it comes to customers and things like that.
Yeah.
So either way, started out as a barista, just kind of worked there. I was working at the slowest store. So I ended up getting a lot of the trainees or people who were coming in to work at that store. And so eventually worked my way up to shift lead. And so I'd get these people coming in. And that kind of started like, all right, maybe I do really like training. And I like to take people under my wing. And again, I was already going down that educational path. So did shift lead work for a long time there. And then I did this odd little stunt. After that, I moved out to LA. That was a big goal for me, was to get to a major city. So I moved to LA and I worked at a bakery coffee shop for like about 8 months. And there I ended up doing more of an AGM position. So that was really cool. Got to even more know about the kind of background to bakeries and larger cafes. And after that, I went to then go into a fully wholesale role. So after that was when I was like, okay, I'm leaving retail, moving into wholesale. And at that time, I then went to go work for Verve. And so I did business development, account management training for them in the LA area as they were building out. And that was great. That was such a fun time. That was like, you know, Verve is coming from Santa Cruz, moving to LA. And so it was great to be part of when they built out all of those 3 original cafes. And I'm working with their wholesale clients at the time. And so that role, I did a little bit of everything. It was a good intro. But after a couple of years, it was time for me to move on. And so I then went to go work for Equator Coffee Roasters, who is a women-owned coffee roasting company based in San Francisco or Bay Area, and decided to come again to LA and start to build out that area. So there, I mainly focused on specialty sales, more high-level account management, still doing training, of course, always training in the background. And during my time there, I did sales. I went to go manage the LA territory. And then after that, I went to go do national key accounts. And that was a great, fun experience. Life happened, COVID happened, and I found myself in Phoenix. And so then I went to go work with, oh, hello, little guest appearance here. I went to go work with Provision Coffee, which is my now husband's company. And so I decided to then go into their wholesale department, helping as the director of wholesale to do business development. You know, and that was a great experience in regards to small business. Learning a little bit of everything. You do some accounting, some marketing, so, you know, what don't you do? But that was awesome. And so, about 2 years ago, I decided to start Curated Coffee Consulting. Long time coming. You can ask any of my friends. I was probably talking about it for like 3 years. And at some point they were like, you're going to do this or not? And that came from the idea that I knew that, you know, as a representative, oftentimes my job was to just get them the product and make sure that they, you know, the product was represented well and they were supported on that level. But I found that the deeper relationships I had and the more fulfilling times I had was when I could go beyond that. And, you know, people were asking me questions about how to handle their managers or how to build out lists and all these operational things that I had already done. And I wanted to not have a limit to how I could help somebody. And so that was kind of the beginning, starting process of why I wanted to go into consulting. So I could really specialize in a lot more, you know, hands-on assistance for a lot of these people who are starting at coffee shops.
Yeah, that is really cool. And a lot of people don't realize how much kind of goes into coffee. So it's really cool that you started that, because people don't realize what they need until they need it, right? So it's cool that you provided that service. Through Curated Coffee Consulting, you do education still though, right? Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. So kind of 2 different prongs to education there. I still hold my AST authorized SCA trainer license. So I'm able to do classes for the SCA, Intro to Coffee, Barista Foundations, and Barista Intermediate. So I host those probably like quarterly, 2 times a year or so. And then also as part of my consulting is I offer individualized training. So I'm able to, you know, if a cafe is interested in whether they're starting out or they already have a pre-existing cafe, looking at your training not only physically doing it, so teaching the basics in espresso or advanced levels, milk steaming, latte art, drink construction, all this other stuff. I also do like module creation and curriculum development. So then hopefully passing on an actual curriculum that you can take on and go from there. Yeah. As well as a train the trainer course, right? Like you have to learn how to become a trainer. Just because you know it doesn't mean you can't teach it. There's a lot of soft level skills you got to learn.
Definitely. No, that's really, really cool. Thanks for explaining kind of your journey in that. It's cool as someone in the coffee industry to see how many different avenues you have within coffee. I feel like when I started, I really thought it was just barista, lead, shop management, and then that's it. You know, that there wasn't any other avenues, but there's always like wholesale to explore, sales, equipment sales, coffee sales, education, a bunch of different avenues.
Yeah, green coffee, roasting. There's so many different ones.
And I feel like a lot of people don't know that. So thank you for sharing and for kind of talking about how you ended up at all of those places.
Yeah, definitely. Really, really cool. I think you can love coffee and know that you don't have to be pigeonholed just into like a cafe element. There are still so many other jobs in coffee in which you still interact with, you know, interact with customers or clients. That's kind of personally what I happen to love a little bit more. You know, a lot of the time people are interested in travel. And so they maybe want to be a green buyer, but actually a great way if you want to travel a lot, get into green coffee sales, right? There's so many different avenues you can take.
That's so funny. I didn't know that. I'm like, okay, mental note, green coffee sales.
Yeah, exactly.
Traveling. Got it.
Yep.
That's really, really cool. Well, going into traveling, right? So you identify as a POC. Do you want to talk about, you know, like where your family's from, where you're from, kind of what your experience has been like as a POC in coffee? Yeah,
totally. So I you know, I kind of think myself a little bit of a juxtaposition here where, you know, my name is Tarra Samuelson, you know, and I speak with what we might consider to be a very like Anglo or white, you know, way of speaking. But actually my dad is from El Salvador. So he immigrated when he was a child over. And then my mom is first generation Central American, but her parents were from Costa Rica and Nicaragua. So cool. So I did grow up speaking Spanish. Unfortunately, I've lost a lot of it. Grow up, I think, very culturally Hispanic or Latino. And yeah, but I grew up in a small, predominantly white town in Southern California. So that's kind of an odd thing too, where in Southern California, such a large Latino population, you know, but then happened to be in this kind of tinier town and so it's interesting because I did not come to reckon or understand the cultural differences that I was experiencing until I probably was like 17, 18.
Okay.
And the first kind of like shift that I felt was all of my friends were like, I'm going to go to this 4-year college. And, you know, their parents were taking them all over this place. And when it came to college for me, and not to say that this is a predominantly Hispanic or Latino thing, but I think the cultural inference came into this was that when I started talking about it, my family was like, what are you talking about? You're not leaving till you're married. Like you're going to college, but you're going down the street. And it was a conversation we never had until I got much older. And I realized, you know, of course, economics came into play, but that cultural difference really set in. And it wasn't just my parents that were like, what do you mean you're looking to go away to college? It was my grandparents too. And my aunts and my uncles who all, you know, we all live very close to each other. And so that started having that shift there.
Okay.
So either way, you know, how it's kind of come into play in my work life and what it is, you know, it's, I think, coming to realize where I've had some privileges and where I don't have those privileges. And so I have most seen the lack of privilege or my race or my gender come out the most is in sales. I won't lie.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. For sure. For sure. So, you know, I would say just simply put, if I'm looking to sell coffee or represent coffee, I'm usually the only one who is fitting this particular demographic of a woman, POC. A lot of times I'm going up against a lot of, you know, male or men identifying, you know, white, passing, things like that. Tattoos and beards, you know, like I don't have those. I'm like, A solid like foot shorter than everybody showing up. So
funny.
There's that factor too.
Yeah.
And where it has come out to play is I learned very quickly I couldn't afford to be wrong.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have that automatic trust. I had to build that trust a lot more. And so, it's not that someone said, I don't trust you, or do you really know your stuff?
No, but you feel like you have to prove yourself.
Oh, 100%. Right? I can't be wrong.
No.
I can't afford to be a little bit messed up. I got to be on my game. I have to know because I don't have that automatic trust. So I have to prove that trust through my knowledge, through, my experience, whatever it is. And the way that I found that this was the case is I've had so many kind of little comments of, oh, wow, you really know your stuff. It's
why would you think
I wouldn't? Why do you need to question that? Yep. So I've had that comment so many times. Okay. And that was the way that kind of told me, oh, okay, you automatically went in thinking I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't realize how much of like a backhanded compliment it is, right? Because on one hand, they're saying, oh, you're so knowledgeable. Yes. But on the other hand, they're saying, you are proving my preconceived notion that I had about you wrong.
Yes.
So you need to be praised for that. And you're kind of like, why would you have that preconceived notion in the first place? Like, why do you think I'm not worthy of the title that I hold, the position that I'm in, the knowledge that I've gained? Like, why do you automatically think that I don't know what I'm talking about?
100%.
That's so funny. Well, 100%. Me being a trainer and even in account management, there's been so many times where, let's say it's me and one of my coworkers that is male presenting or that is a man in the same room. Even though I'm the one that's the trainer, I'm the one that's the account manager, they may look to them first when they're asking questions or when they're wanting to talk about specific things. And for me, I'm like, yeah, they don't actually know how to use the espresso machine. So maybe come back to me, or they don't really know how to do X, Y, Z. And it's kind of a trip when you realize that everyone kind of goes into it thinking that whether it's because you're a POC, whether it's because you're a woman or you present yourself as a woman, that you just automatically don't really know as much as your male counterpart would. Yeah. Right? Yeah.
100%.
Crazy.
Yeah. And it's not that oftentimes people are walking in thinking, I think this man knows more.
It's subconscious.
Exactly. It's very subconscious. And that's what's kind of, I think, tough is no one's doing this deliberately or to offend us. It's not.
But it's frustrating on the receiving end.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just kind of like in the background. This is something that compounds over and over and over again. Yeah. And I hear you out, especially in customer service too. I think there's kind of this double-edged sword with customer service, particularly for in the coffee industry. Yeah. So I would say a lot of time women or like female presenting folks are preferred in more of that cashier role because it is perceived that you are nicer, you are kinder, guests will like that more, you'll be accommodating, which is not fair to men or male presenting folks. So that's not cool. But then secondly, double-edged swords of that is you are anticipated to provide more. So when you go outside of what is considered like much more or like outside of like really high-end customer service, it's perceived as so much more offensive, right? Yeah. And so, I've had to backtrack on that, like, stop saying sorry, stop saying I'm, just sorry I'm bothering you, or things like that. You know what I mean?
You don't even realize you're doing.
Oh my gosh, yeah, no, totally. I mean, I had an incident where I had to tell a customer 3 times over that we could not offer this type of service, right? And even the fact that I had to repeat myself multiple times was already the indication that he was disregarding what I had to say. Yeah. I had a male coworker come in, literally say, hey, dude, we just don't do that. No.
And they accepted it.
And they were like, you know what? I was just kidding. Don't worry about it. Stuff like that. So you're telling me I had to write 3 emails profusely apologizing, explaining the situation. And yet that kept getting discredited when I have a male coworker come in and say, bro, we don't do that. No, sorry, no apology. And it was fully accepted. Yeah. Right. And so it's like these little instances are when it comes out.
No, definitely. Yeah. And I would just challenge anyone that's watching that may not fit into our demographic, it, like we said, it's not intentional. It's not like people are trying to be intentionally offensive, but maybe look to see how you can, change these things when we're not necessarily in the room, when people that don't look like us or that are not in marginalized communities, when they're not in the room, how are you presenting opportunities or, different things like that. So that's my challenge to anyone watching that's maybe not,
Love that.
that doesn't relate to what we're talking about or,
Fair. Absolutely. Comes down to really, acknowledging your privilege and kind of where that is. And I definitely recommend looking at Kim Crenshaw, who is a Black feminist, incredible. And she really outlines so many ideas of privilege and how that presents itself and where you lie and that, intersectionality.
And
I know that's been a hot word. No, it's
privilege
not.
Is not a bad word.
And it's okay to have privilege.
Yeah, you shouldn't feel guilty necessarily for having you should not. Just recognize it.
Recognize it. Yep. Recognize it. Recognize when you have it and where it is. We all have it in some way, shape, or form. And so where that is. Yeah. I'm with you on that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Kind of going into that just a little bit, I feel like it ties into it. What stigmas would you like to see changed in the industry, whether relating to what we just talked about or something different? What stigmas would you like to see changed?
I think that's great. So I think the stigma I'd like to see changed is, and I recognize I maybe can't speak fully on it because I don't identify as a producer. Yeah. But one thing I'd like to change kind of this narrative. I guess it's not really stigma, but it's a narrative of us as coffee roasters saving these farmers. I decided to go into it.
Oh, wait a second.
Yeah. That would be something I'd like to see a little bit different. Yeah. I think there is a lot of pride in this idea of direct trade, which I would like to have formally identified as a true term. Like direct trade does not have a formal official definition, to my understanding, much like third and first world countries do. These are not actual terms. These are just kind of things that we understand colloquially. And so, a lot of the time during specialty coffee, that was the pinnacle of the best way you could source.
Yeah.
And I do agree that in many outlets, it is a fantastic way and a very, very environmentally, economically, and socially sound way to source whatever you're getting. However, I really opened up my eyes to that there can be a lot of disadvantages to it in regards to the fact that oftentimes you have the buyers speaking English, the international language of business, and the producers not. And so there can actually be quite a bit of privilege abuse in that way, right? And so I just feel like what I'd like to see the stigma change, not really stigma, it's actually more of a narrative change, is I'd like to see a narrative of producers and roasters working together to bring everybody up, right? Versus kind of this inherent narrative that's kind of been sent of like, hey, we're these roasters and we're saving these impoverished farmers from this. And that doesn't mean that many of these places aren't going through true situations that require, yes, there are, issues with lack of safe water, health, food, education, food, shelter, all of these things. I'm not here to say that isn't happening and that coffee roasters aren't helping to change and alleviate that by buying coffee in a direct trade way and buying at a higher price. I'm saying that there is a bit of a natural narrative that is kind of continuing on that I think we need to have a little bit of a bigger reflection on.
I think so too. Yeah, because I think that it dehumanizes the people that are going through that. The producers, when you come in immediately thinking that I'm the one that's going to save you guys and I'm the one that's going to do XYZ for you rather than, hey, like, let's work together to better provide resources or to better the situation for both of us.
100%. Right? Yeah. I learned that empowerment cannot be passed down or along. It has to be from within.
Oh, that's good.
Yes. So when you do this thing of like, I'm empowering you to do that, you are transferring what is quote unquote a power you had, a privilege you had, and passing it on. That isn't true empowerment. Empowerment is from within.
Yeah.
And allowing people to make those choices, giving them the option, things like that. Yeah. So I think, if you really want to get on a very philosophical level of it, which we probably do not have time
could, but
yeah.
Another episode.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I was a feminist studies major and this is what happens. You can look at any situation and
I believe it.
Warp it into a different perspective. So yeah, that's probably what I'd like to see a little bit too.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like not a lot of people tend to talk about it, but it's something that I notice everywhere. Like if you look at a lot of coffee roasters bios or about me's or like the video content they put out, a lot of it tends to be geared towards that like white savior or just savior mentality in general.
Yeah,
so
totally.
I'd like to see that narrative change as well. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. That's great.
Yeah. It's a touchy subject.
It is.
But I do think it needs to be had. And again,
Agreed.
like speaking as someone who is not a producer, I recognize I cannot really lead that narrative. But as somebody who's on the other side of it, this is what I'm seeing that maybe could be challenged. That's really more what I'm saying.
And if anyone has any resources, you know, that they want to kind of drop in the chat or in comment section or send to us in general, that would be great. Just anyone that's already doing the work, because we can talk about it all we want, right? But we need to have people, whether it's us or other people kind of doing the work on the ground. If anyone's already doing that, just feel free to send those resources and we'd love to look into them.
Please.
For everyone listening too. So perfect. And then the next question that I have, kind of leading into the last one, are there any people in the coffee industry that you either looked up to when you started or that you currently look up to now? They don't have to be super well known. They can even be local. But
oh, totally. All right. I have so many, so I'm going to go ahead. And all right, so let me go ahead and get started with just a few. John Owens, who is my coffee godfather. He was like the grumpy old barista. Sorry, I'm sorry. I did just call you old there. Who like took little 19-year-old Tarra under his wing and was like, let me show you what a good shot's like. And, you know, I think we all need one of those in our life. Definitely. So I'll get started with him. After that, you know, I am so fortunate to have worked under Heather Perry. Just an incredible woman, business owner, trainer, human. And so super fortunate for her. Alex Littlejohn, who is also one of my best friends. She has always looked out for me and helped to take me under her wing, showed me sales, business, leadership. Kat Malingtapang is another person too. We worked together years ago for an internship with the International Women's Coffee Alliance, and we've been colleagues ever since. You know, I will say to the incredible women at Equator, Helen Russell, Maureen, Brooke, man, I grew up so much during that time, and I was able to grow up because I saw what they were doing, and they never hid anything from me that not in that way, but they always let me see what they were doing so I could be exposed and see how they do things. And I think you just look at that company and they've done incredible stuff. So them as well. And then probably one of the last is Maria Cleveland. Maria is just such a badass woman in sales, coffee, energy wise, and same thing. And I've learned a lot about consulting and business as well, you know. And then there has been so many other people along the way. I mean, I think I look at you, I look at Lisette, I look at Haley, I look at, oh my gosh, so many of you guys. I mean, I think at Provision, so many incredible women there, Kat as well. And so there's just some great people who I've been able to see and grow. And in that way, it's not just people up, it's people who I get to, you know, I've had the honor of working with and seeing development in that way too.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. That's
awesome. Of course. Yeah.